The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by NYRA Bets. Bet the Kentucky Derby by using the code SGPN25 for $25 free bet plus a $200 bonus, once again, deposit match at nyrabets.com/SGPN25 and start winning today. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Tuesday night, around 7 p.m. Eastern Time on April 29th. I'm your host, episode Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the preview of the round of 16 over in Madrid. So we're going to break down the matches now. I do want to point out that the round of 16 matches are actually not all being played on one day. Most of the matches are being played on Wednesday, but there are a couple of matches being played on Thursday. To keep that in mind, we have lines, though, on every match. We're going to get into all those matches in a second. Before we get into the actual breakdown of those matches, though, quick recap of how we did in the last episode. Overall, a decent episode for us. Starting off with the bad news, did lose the lock with Shelton team total over 12.5 at minus 125. He apparently was battling an illness, but he was horrible the entire match. He just could not really move that well. He wasn't really hitting his spots at all, and Mensah killed him. So not even close there for the lock. We had a nice win for the dog. We had a 2-big parlay. We had Draper money line parlayed with Diminaur to win the first set and the match at plus 118, and that did end up winning. Draper, we thought, was basically a free leg because we saw Berrettini battle the abdomen-hip injury in that match against Giron, and he looked very, very underwhelming. I know he ended up winning the third set pretty handily, but Berrettini, you could tell he wasn't moving that well. His serve was definitely down a decent amount in terms of speed, and we thought that he was basically a dead man walking for the sake of the match against Draper. First set was close. Draper, I think, blew about 4 set points, then eventually did win the first set in a tiebreak. And then Berrettini quit because he knew he couldn't play. So nice win there. We called that to a T. Thought Berrettini would end up retiring as a failsafe, and we mentioned specifically to bet it on a book that grades retirements as wins. So hopefully he followed my advice and ended up winning that in the first leg of the parlay. Then we Diminaur to win the first set in the match against Shapo. Shapo beat Nishikori, who had a hard time against Vukic in the first match. Shapo's been in pretty bad form lately, and we thought that Diminaur would dominate. He did, as he won in straight sets. So once again, a nice win there for the dog, plus 118, and hopefully we'll end up sweeping the episode here for the round of 16. Plus, a reminder, don't forget to show support for the show by like, subscribing on YouTube, and remind you to also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. I believe we're once again over 900 subscribers now, trying to get to 1,000 by the end of May. Hopefully, you can help us get there. And for YouTube, once again, you can watch it either on a live stream, you can watch it on the video format afterwards, or even on Twitter with the simulcast from the SGPN Twitter account, or you can listen to it on Spotify or Apple. Just please leave some feedback and leave a rating and a review to help the show grow. Plus, a reminder, you can check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Game Buckets merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs. High quality, different colors, very affordable. Recommend getting yourself something. Plus, we also have the SGPN helmet, which you can see on the side if you want to get some home decor. Point is that we have a lot of options on the merch store. Recommend getting yourself something. Plus, a reminder, they do have a way of showing support for the show, because not just for this podcast, but you can leave some support for SGPN's free content by taking a second to give us a 5-star rating and review on Spotify or Apple. And don't forget to once again subscribe to all the channels for the shows you like, whether it's the College Experience, the MLB Gambling Podcast, NBA Gambling Podcast, whichever show you follow. Don't forget to leave a rating and review, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Now, for the actual recap of the matches on Tuesday, overall, thought it was a pretty interesting day of tennis and getting into the matches in particular. Starting off with the common theme here, though, mostly straightforward matches. You had a couple of 3-setters. I'd say most were in straight sets. Saw Diminaur beat Shapo in straight sets. Saw Tiafoe beat Muller in straight sets. Paul ended up beating Khachanov in a bit of a war there, as he did end up winning 6-2 in the third set. Diallo continues the lucky loser run, as he was able to beat Norrie after dropping the first set. So Mensah destroyed Bublik. Bublik never had a chance. Props to him, though, for actually making a pretty deep run on clay. But Bublik looked over and Mensah and basically said, what am I supposed to do? Because Mensah's a great server. He's better than Bublik, and Bublik had no chance. But nice job by Mensah there, who continues his solid form since winning the title in Miami. And we'll see how he does in the remainder of the event. Saw Dimitrov beat Fernley. That match, I believe, was delayed by about a game or two from the day before, but Dimitrov eventually did win 6-4, 7-6. Draper beat Berrettini in a tiebreak and a retirement. You saw Tsitsipas punt away a first set where he was dominating, as he was up, I think it was 4-1, 15-40 on Mussetti's serve, or maybe I think it was something like that, and he ended up blowing it, and then Musetti won in straight sets. So we saw Tsitsipas own the head-to-head before their match of Monte Carlo, and Musetti was able to run it back and win in the second time against Tsitsipas in a month. So Cerundolo beats Zverev again. Cerundolo is just very good against Zverev. We saw him beat him earlier in the South American clay slate, beat him again here as he won 7-5, 6-3. Zverev just can't beat this damn guy, apparently on clay, but nice job by Cerundolo. Saw Medvedev lose the first set to Nakashima, then he was able to come back and win in 3 sets, and saw Ruud beat Fritz in straight sets. Ruud looks good, dare I say it. We know that we've been waiting for him to showcase a bit more consistency. We know that he is a very solid clay player, and he looked solid over the course of the match, was able to beat Fritz. Fritz was pretty fortunate to get by Bonzi in the previous round, who had an injury, had to retire, and ended up leaving the match early. So point is, Fritz was on the ropes in that match against Bonzi the previous round, was pretty lucky with injury luck, and then ended up losing to Ruud in straight sets in the match on Tuesday. But once again, a pretty interesting day of tennis, nothing too shocking per se. I mean, Berrettini retiring was kind of shocking to some. We predicted it, so that wasn't exactly a shock to us at all. So we took Draper in the moneyline parlay for the dog. But nothing too shocking. Diallo is the main, I'd say, surprising story here, who was a lucky loser after losing to Chorich in qualifying and then somehow made it into the round of 16. We'll see how the Canadian does in this overall, I'd say, upcoming matches or match. We'll see. But point is, nice job by him, who was not really very good on clay, at least based on reputation. I know that he pushed Baez to a third set on clay a couple weeks ago, but mostly a hard court guy, and he's had a good run here in Madrid. So good for him. Musetti beating Tsitsipas back-to-back times was kind of shocking. Tsitsipas was undefeated against him entering that Monte Carlo match, and that's basically it. So once again, main shock, I guess, was Diallo making a good run. You looked at Cerundolo beating Zverev, which was surprising to some. Once again, I'm not as shocked because Cerundolo did beat Zverev on clay a couple months ago, but it is worth mentioning it was an upset after Zverev did win a title in Munich. Anyway, that's going to recap the actual matches on Tuesday. Time to move on to the preview of the matches here in the round of 16. Before we get into the actual matches, though, for the round of 16, a reminder that we are brought to you by our sponsor, EdJuice, because they're the first ever bank available for bettors. They ensure that all gambling transactions are approved. You get no usage fees, no minimum balance. You can also catch rewards, 100% approval for all betting deposits. Sign up today at EdJuice.bet. Promo code SGPN. They also have a great deal for you. Deposit $25, EdJuice will match your deposit. So once again, it's EdJuice.bet. Promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by NYRA Bets because it's Derby Week at SGPN. You might not have realized Kentucky Derby is actually this weekend, but if you want to make sure that you get in on all of the horse racing knowledge, don't forget to check out the horse racing podcast from SGPN, the notorious OTB for all your picks. Plus, get in on the action with the most exciting 2 minutes in sports with NYRA Bets. Sign up today. Deposit and once again, boost your Derby deposit with a $25 free bet and a $200 deposit bonus with promo code SGPN25. Join now and claim your $25 free bet and $200 bonus deposit match at NYRA Bets. Promo code SGPN25. We're also brought to you by MyBook.ag because they have the book that every sport. They have the NBA playoffs, they have the NHL playoffs, they have baseball, they have tennis, whatever you can think of, MyBookie does have. They have props in every game as well. They also accept customers at some locations. You can also use crypto for easy deposits, lightning fast payouts, and a reminder, you can use the promo code SGPN when you sign up for your new account at MyBook.ag. And when you do so, you get 100% odds match up to 1K. Terms and conditions apply. MyBook.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished recapping what happened on Tuesday. Time to move on into the matches here for the round of 16. Starting off with the first match on the card, you have Tiafoe against Arnaldi, which is a pretty interesting matchup. Now, Tiafoe's been good so far here. So is Arnaldi. Arnaldi beat Djokovic a couple rounds ago, then got rewarded with the Zoomer in the next round as he was able to win in straight sets. But Arnaldi's minus 140, give or take. Tiafoe's around plus 120. For the spread, minus 1.5 for Arnaldi, plus 1.5 for Tiafoe. For the actual games here, you have 23.5. For the spread here, for the sets, you have Arnaldi in straight sets at plus 190. Tiafoe to win in straight sets, plus 260. The over 2.5 is around plus 125. Now, for that history, faced off one time before in Wimbledon. It was last year, and Tiafoe lost the first 2 sets, came back and won in 5. Now, for Tiafoe, been good so far, but there was a bit of an asterisk next to the first match. as he beat Darderi, who retired in the first round, then beat Moore in the second round 6-3, 6-3. So decent competition. Darderi, though, seemed to run out of gas and ended up quitting. As for Rinaldi, beat Coric in 3, then beat Djokovic in straight sets, and beat De Zoomer in straight sets. So Rinaldi has won 6 straight sets at the event. So I think based on Tiafoe's history in Europe just not being too great, I understand why Rinaldi's favored. I think there's some value on Tiafoe, though. I see a close match. I'm not going to pick it being lopsided either way. Yes, Rinaldi, I think, has beaten better competition, mostly Djokovic, who has not been very good on clay this year. But I do think that Tiafoe's got the better serve, and I do think that Tiafoe can make life difficult for Rinaldi if Rinaldi's unforced error count gets up there, which we have seen in the past. But I think the Zoomer's fine. I think Coric is fine. I'd say Djokovic is the main win there. But you could argue that besides that performance, he has looked fine against pretty weak competition. For Tiafoe, kind of the same boat, beating Moore and beating Darderi in a set and a half. You could argue both guys, despite having, once again, solid runs here, have not exactly played their A game. I think that I'd say Arnaldi's been closer. I think Arnaldi's probably played his B plus game, and you're looking at Tiafoe's played, I'd say, a B at this point. I mean, he looked good against Moore, but pretty weak competition up to this point. I think you're looking at what should be a close matchup. I understand why the over 2.5 sets is pretty cheap, because I can see a bit of a marathon breaking out here. Maybe team total over, if you want to go for an angle there to try to reduce the juice. I think that Arnaldi probably wins in 3. I'll give Tiafoe a set. But I do think Arnaldi is better on European clay, and that Tiafoe is still a guy who I don't really trust. And the fact that Arnaldi showcased his level against Djokovic, who once again has been, I'd say, underperforming lately, still a nice straight set win, took care of business, and he was able to back it up with a nice showing against Zoomer. Easy letdown spot against Zoomer right afterwards, and he showed no signs of that as he was able to dominate. So give me Arnaldi in 3. Think the pricing sounds about right at minus 140, so I don't see much value on that, but I think the over 2.5 sets would probably be my main play at plus 125. I think it probably goes 3. That's my thoughts on that one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have Draper against Paul. Should be a fun match. Draper's minus 162. You have Paul at plus 142. For the spread, minus 2.5 for Draper, plus 2.5 for Paul. The over-under's at around 23. For the set spread, you have Draper in straight sets at plus 160. Paul to win in straight sets at plus 325. And the over 2.5 sets is plus 130. Now, I mentioned before that Tiafoe and Rinaldi had one match of history. Draper and Paul's history is more extensive, as they have faced all 5 times. Now, Paul has won 2 of the last 3. Draper, though, has won at least one set in all 5 meetings. Draper did lose to Paul in London last year on grass in 3, beat him in Acapulco 6-0, 6-4. Lost in the Australian Open last year. Paul won in 4. Saw Draper win in Adelaide in 2024, and saw Draper win in Adelaide again in 2023. So the point is, Draper has won at least one set in every match. So when Paul does beat Draper, tends to be a bit of length involved, and Draper we've seen beat Paul in straight sets on 3 separate occasions. So the question is, do I think that Paul should be this big of a dog in this matchup? I understand it. Now, Draper had a very nice draw against Berrettini, which we called an injured opponent, so nice job by him there. Went to a breaker, but he had a bunch of set points before that, so it was definitely, I'd say, not as close as it was suggested based on the final scoreline of the set, and he was able to beat Griekspoor comfortably, and Griekspoor is very dangerous with the serve in any surface. You're looking at Paul, though, beat Khachanov in 3. Once again, a classic Paul performance, kind of up and down, was able to find his rhythm there in the 3rd set, and had a straight set win against Fonseca, which was very weird, because Paul won once again 7-6, 7-6, but he ended up having to fight off significantly more break points than what he got when it comes to his own returning game. Because Fonseca, I believe, only faced 1 break point in the entire match, and yet he got broken. And as for Paul, he had to fight off double-digit break points in order to actually win. So you're looking at the actual numbers here. Fonseca ended up, so I misspoke. Fonseca ended up having 5 break points he had to face. He fought off 4 of them, but the point is he was only broken 1 time. Paul, though, had to face 13 break points, and he was only broken once. So even though he won in straight sets against Fonseca, not as easy as it might have been suggested. Fonseca probably should have won a set in that match, and then Paul came back and beat Khachanov in 3. I see a close match here. I think Draper is the better player, and I do think that Draper has looked very solid in the event so far. Yes, I understand that Paul's had tougher competition. against the likes of Fonseca and against Kashanov. But I do think Draper's better if you're asking me to compare both guys. I see a close matchup though. I don't mind the over 2.5 sets of plus 130. Team total over for Draper maybe. Think it'll be a close matchup. I think Draper will win, but I think it might go 3. That's kind of my thoughts on that one. Moving on to the next match, you have Dimitrov against Diallo. Think we'll actually skip that one. We'll get back to that one in a bit. For the next match, you have Dimenauer against Musetti. Going to skip that one too. Going to save that for the end of the show. Moving on to the matches on Thursday, though, you have the matchup between Ruud and Medvedev. Now, Ruud's minus 190. You Medvedev at plus 150. Head-to-head history, though, is in favor of Medvedev, as Medvedev is currently 3-0. In fact, he's never dropped a set. To Ruud, however, 2 meetings were on hard court. 1 was on grass. We know that Ruud is definitely at his best on clay. So no clay history, which is worth mentioning. Now, Medvedev has looked okay in the event. Was able to beat Nakashima in 3 on Tuesday. Beat JM Sarundalo in straight sets the previous round, and Degir no-showed as he got a walkover. So Medvedev does not look that great, but he's been able to get by against pretty weak competition and a walkover. Ruud, those look very good. Beat Rinderknecht in straight sets, beat Korda in straight sets, and beat Fritz in straight sets. Now, the question is, do I think Medvedev can win a set? I think Ruud should win the match. He's definitely better on clay. And I think Medvedev's deep return position actually works in favor of Ruud because Ruud wants to stand back on the court as well. A lot of baseline rallies here. But Ruud's second serve can be a bit vulnerable, and Medvedev's going to do nothing to capitalize on that. So I think Ruud should be able to take control of points pretty early. I think he's got some rally skills as well, along with the volley skills. So I think that he can choose to end points quickly. He can choose to rally. Point is, I would not be surprised if you ended up seeing a bit more volleying from Ruud over the course of this match, which can work to his benefit. But I think Medvedev, at the end of the day, has played weak competition. Ruud's definitely in good form. He's looking like the old Ruud again to some degree. Now, I'm not saying he's going to win the entire event, but I think based on the upside of both guys on clay, Ruud's definitely better, and he should be favored. I'd probably go Ruud minus the games here. Maybe straight sets, but I know Ruud's definitely capable of punting a set, blowing a bunch of break points. Classic Ruud fashion. But I think Ruud should win this one pretty comfortably. I'll go with the games here. If you want to go for the straight sets at plus money, I don't mind it. Bit dangerous, though, with Ruud, but I do think he should win this match against Medvedev, so I'll go with that as my choice for this one. And moving on to the final match, you have Sarundalo against Mensik. Now, for this one, should be a pretty interesting matchup because you are looking at what should be a pretty, I'd say, competitive battle. Now, Sarundalo is minus 150, give or take. Mensik's around plus 125. For the actual head-to-head history, we saw them face off one time last year in Beijing, and Sarundalo beat Mensik in straight sets. There was a breaker, though, in the first set. Now, Sarundalo's been great. He's not dropped a set yet. Ended up beating Mayotte in the first round, beat Komasanya in straight sets, and beat Zverev in straight sets. So he's currently not dropping a set in the entire event. As for Mensik, he is also not dropped a set in the entire event. Was able to beat Quinn in straight sets, beat Shelton, who was compromised, and ended up beating Bublik in straight sets. So both guys are playing great tennis. Both guys have been serving well, and Mensik, we know, has an insane amount of firepower, especially for a guy who's a teenager, who's going to be a serious problem on tour. For a while, we saw him win a 1,000 event a couple weeks ago, and Sarundalo, we know, is solid on clay. Did lose to Shelton, though, in Munich, and I know that it's not exactly the same style of play, because we know that Shelton has a bit more topspin with his overall forehand. Point is, though, we did see Shelton beat Sarundalo, who is also a pretty big server. So we've seen, I don't want to say a similar match, but you can make the argument, and we saw Sarundalo lose because we saw Shelton serve figure it out after a pretty bad first set, and we saw Shelton serve kind of just limit the return chances of Sarundalo. Mensik can really do that. His first serve is that good. The problem for Mensik is that his second serve is still not that great. It's kind of similar to like a Zverev situation where the drop-off in first serve and second serve quality is jarring. I think Mensik, once again, has one of the best first serves on tour. I believe he's number 1 on tour in aces this year, but the second serve's not great. Now, Sarundalo has a pretty vulnerable serve, but I'd say that he's smart with it, and he can pick his spots. So he can rev it up when he needs to. He can go for angles when he needs to out wide. I see a very close match here. I think you're going to see a war. I think there might be value on Mensik, though, at plus money, at plus 120, plus 125. I think it'll be a close matchup. I don't mind the breaker here at around plus 114 I saw on Bet Rivers. See a close matchup, though. Don't mind the over. But I see a bit more of a coin flip than people think. I understand the argument of Sarundalo beating Zverev, and people think he's just going to destroy Mensik here. I don't see that. I think Mensik's serve is good enough to keep Sarundalo's return in check. I think Sarundalo's serve can be vulnerable enough to leave some openings for Mensik. I think there's a path for Mensik. But give me the over in this one. Give me a breaker, and I do think Mensik will win in 3 for my prediction. I like the value. I just think plus 120 or plus 125 has some value to it. So I'll go Mensik in that one as the final play for the round of 16. Now it's time to move on into the lock and dog plays for the actual round of 16. Before we get into those, a reminder, they're brought to you by fans. You can play their own pick 'em. Sheds 100 times your money. You can also use different sports. You can use tennis. You can use the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. You can use MMA, baseball, you name it. You can use it for your own entry. Esports as well. Sign up, though, with the promo code SGPN25, or SGPN, I mean. Promo code SGPN to claim special conversion time with an offer up to 20K bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, because they're the home of bet picks and props. They're also live Major League Baseball. They are live for the NBA playoffs as well, which can help you once again dominate the very, very entertaining playoff so far we've gotten in the NBA. You can also put your own model, which is very easy to do. You could also try it out for free for a week, which is definitely a great deal. So if you're skeptical of using models, let Rhythm help you with that. You can also try it out for a week before making a decision to actually join it full time. They have a couple great deals, though, for discounts if you want to join it full time, because they have monthly deals and they have an annual deal. Monthly deal, though, use the promo code HM25 for a 25% off monthly subscription, and for the annual deal, 50% off the annual deal with promo code SGPN50. Rhythm, RATHM, promo code SGPN25 or SGPN50. Get your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgambling.com/RATHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the matches for the round of 16. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Now, I skipped 2 matches. I skipped the Dimitrov match, and I skipped the de Minaur match, and I am going to go with de Minaur first set money line as my lock here at minus 128. I like the price. De Minaur, we ended up backing in the first set in some degree in the dog play last episode. He's really good early in matches. de Minaur has won the first set in 7 of his last 8, and you're looking at de Minaur winning the first set in each of the last 2 head-to-head meetings. Faced off about a month ago, 2 weeks ago or so in Monte Carlo, and we saw de Minaur lose the match in 3, but he won the first set 6-1. So de Minaur has been owning the head-to-head in the first set against Musetti in the past, and I do think that de Minaur should look sharp early in this match again. Now, Musetti has not dropped a set yet, technically, in the event so far, but he was down a ton against Tsitsipas early in that first set and came back and won it. He was down 1-4, 15-40, so he was on the verge of getting blasted in the first set by Tsitsipas, came back and was able to get the job done. But the point is, Musetti was vulnerable to start the match again. Kind of a common theme for Musetti over the last couple of weeks, where he can come back and win in 3, but the first set tends to be pretty ugly as he finds range and he finds his overall form. Think de Minaur, who's based on consistency as his main claim to fame, will force errors from Musetti. I think he'll look sharp in the first set. Musetti might win this match, but I do think de Minaur should jump him early to get a lead. Saw that happen in the last meeting in Monte Carlo about 2 weeks ago, as we saw 6-1 first set in favor of de Minaur before losing in 3. Give me de Minaur to once get off to a good start here. Take the first set money line at minus 128 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go into the Dimitrov and Diallo match, and even though I can't stand the guy, I can't really avoid him in the spot. Give me Dimitrov in straight sets at plus 130. I think the price is too good. Dimitrov has not dropped a set yet, only dropped 7 games to Jari. I think Jari and Diallo is a pretty solid comp when you factor in the unforced errors and you factor in the good serving. I think it's a pretty solid comparison. And Dimitrov smacked him. So I see Dimitrov looking good here. Diallo, though, has made a good run to the round of 16 as a lucky loser. He's really faced off against nobody. Beat Nori in 3, beat Majcik in 3, and beat Bergs in straight sets. But he was a lucky loser, and all 3 of the guys he beat are outside the top 49. So massive step up competition. We know Dimitrov is also a very tough opponent to beat if you have a lot of unforced error issues because of the variety, the slicing. He should be able to force a lot of mistakes from Diallo. As Diallo wants to end points quickly, Dimitrov's not afraid of using variety to extend points, and he's also been serving pretty well. So I think you're looking at Dimitrov, who will be tough to break based on his overall serve quality. He's also able to break with his variety, and Diallo, I do think, who's been serving very well in terms of percentage. If that dips a little bit, I see a lot of chances for Dimitrov to break. You might see some double fault issues for Diallo, but for the actual match itself, I understand that Diallo has been impressive here, but he's faced off against 3 guys outside the top 50, or outside the top 49, I mean. And Dimitrov, I do think, is just much better. I think it's a massive step up competition, and Dimitrov beating Jari is a solid, once again, tune-up match, per se, for Diallo, and I do think Dimitrov should look sharp here. Might go to a breaker, maybe it's a sweat, But I do like the plus money at plus 130. I think it's a good spot. Give me Dimitrov in straight sets here at plus 130 as my dog. So once again, the plays here for the round of 16. The lock's going to be on de Minaur first set money line at minus 128 against Musetti. Dog will be on Dimitrov to win in straight sets at plus 130. Let's wrap it up, though, back once again for the quarterfinals here in Madrid. Till next time, you can find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. And a reminder, don't forget to leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple for the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Don't forget to also subscribe and like the video. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.